Thanks, Ambassador Robinson. Undersecretary Nelson, are you comfortable with the 365% sanctions increase goal set by the National Drug Control Strategy?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Obviously, our commitment and my commitment is to increasing the number of counter narcotics sanctions using EO 14059, excuse me. But more than the numbers, we're really focused on targeting high impact targets in order to make a real strategic impact. And that is reflected in the work that we've done in terms of evaluating our sanctions authorities and implementing better practices to ensure they're efficient and effective.
So you signed off on the 365% goal set by the drug control strategy.
I'm focused on increasing the strategic effect of our sanctions and increasing the numbers. We're absolutely going to increase the efforts using the new tool under the executive order that we have 100%. There's no question about that. But what I've really been focused on is prioritizing fentanyl and synthetic opioids networks by dedicating significant investigative resources to that particular problem set, which again is less about the numbers, but making sure that we're having strategic effect.
You mentioned that the beneficial ownership regs are, you're currently engaged in those. You've been currently engaged
very much so
for a very long time now. Will you be wrapped up this year?
Yeah, so one thing is we are currently very much engaged. As you know, we did our notice of proposed rulemaking of December of 2021 on the reporting rule, which is the first piece of the three beneficial ownership rulemakings. We've now received hundreds of comments, and we're working through those as rapidly as possible because we view this as a critical piece in developing transparency and an ability to obviously prevent the use of our system by drug trafficking organizations and a number of other illicit actors. So it is a priority.
I'm sure I can speak for Chairman Grassley, who is my co-author, that we'd love to see you guys get this piece of work finished up.
I would only 2 points. Just thank you for that. It is incredibly important to our work. And second, in order to effectively implement it, once we have these regs in place, like I said, we are working on as quickly as possible. We're going to need FinCEN is going to need resources in order to implement it effectively.
Yeah. Well, we got you an additional 22 million.
And we thank you for that. We thank you for that, and that's
in May. And I had a lot to do with that there because we're pushing hard on the klepto capture stuff, and you're an important piece of that effort.
And we very much thank you for that.
Senator Grassley and I have the Combating Money Laundering, Terrorist Finance, and Counterfeiting Act of 2022. Would that help you better attack financial networks, and do you support that bill?
So recognizing that our staffs have, I think, been in close contact and going through the bill, we certainly, and also recognizing that it primarily impacts jurisdictions of Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security, we do agree that it makes important strides towards remedying deficiency in the U.S. AML regime, absolutely, and we're happy to keep working on it with you.
On GTOs, we've seen, Pablo Escobar hid money in the U.S. in real estate. A Mexican governor tied to cartels has been caught with a lot of money invested in U.S. real estate from Texas to Delaware. What do you need to do to expand GTOs nationwide so that this doesn't happen, so that they just can't get around the localities where the GTOs operate and go to ones where they know perfectly well they're not operating? How do we solve that?
So we've put out an advance notice of public rulemaking on this question. We agree that GTOs are temporary and obviously have limited geographic reach. We support a permanent regulatory solution to address that problem of anonymity in the real estate sector. So our next step will be to publish a draft regulation and a notice of proposed rulemaking.
Good. Keep moving.
Thanks.
Ambassador Robinson, one of the president's signature proposals has been the Democracy Initiative, now underway. The Democracy Initiative pushes at kleptocracy and autocracy and corruption around the globe, and it focuses on the international dark economy through which very often Western rule of law nations support and sustain the kleptocracy, autocracy, and criminality that is the bane of our existence, if not our outright enemy. And I'm wondering if you can assure me how effectively the State Department at this point has connected the dots between the Democracy Initiative the international dark money economy that supports it, and your purview of illicit finance supporting the international narcotics trade?
Thank you so much, Senator, for that question. We are focused on working with our interagency partners and our international partners to make sure we're creating effective structures around the world to go after these transnational organized criminals and specifically their assets. We continue to work with the UN. We continue to work with the G20. We continue to work with FATF to make sure that we are working with our partner governments to create the structures and create the networks among our partner governments to go after this illicit finance.
And the places that allow or encourage illicit funds to be held and hidden are an important infrastructure for the narcotics trafficking interest to dispose of, invest, and hide its corrupt proceeds, correct?
That's correct. And that's why we take very seriously our engagement with important countries in the region. So I traveled to Mexico with Undersecretary Nelson as my first trip in this job. I've just recently traveled to Asia and had discussions about this in Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos, and found them to be willing partners in our effort to go after trafficking across the board. And I 2 weeks ago just came back from Pakistan, where again I engaged with our partners in Pakistan to focus on working with their agencies and their structures so that we can monitor better the illicit financing that is happening.
Well, I'll wrap up by turning it over to Co-Chair Grassley, but with the observation that there is a common thread through a lot of the evil in the world, and it is the dark economy that supports the evildoers' ability to hide the assets that they've either extracted wrongfully from their country or taken in bribes or earned through criminal proceeds. And I think we've got to see that network as a target in its own right. And if we can fix that, like in Star Wars, they took out the Death Star and everything else got better. We need to go after the dark money Death Star. And I hope you continue to pursue that. Co-Chair Grassley.